Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Midweek Program at the J.C. Raulston Arboretum. My name is Blake, and I'm the Education Assistant here at the Arboretum, and today we are in the conifer collection because if there is one class of plants that does well for winter propagation, it is conifers, but luckily there are many classes of plants that you can propagate easily in the wintertime, which is very handy. We've got our director, Mark Weathington, here, who's gonna he's already pulled together a program for us. He's gonna tell us all about home winter propagation, how to make more plants for yourself at home easily and with some good knowledge and foresight for thinking about what you're going to do with it. So it should be a really wonderful program. Those of you watching this on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to our channel, and feel free to leave a comment down below. And with the announcements out of the way, I will pass things over to Mark to teach us about home winter propagation.
Thank you so much, Blake. It is a pleasure. So, a lot of times people think that most propagation needs to be done during the spring, summer, maybe going into fall. And the truth is, we do most of our propagation in late spring and early summer. That's when we do the bulk of our sticking cuttings and things like that. But I wanted to specifically talk about winter home propagation for outdoors. This isn't starting tomatoes inside. This is about getting more trees, perennials, shrubs, that sort of thing, and how you can do that pretty easily. So I'm going to start with seed. Seed is very easy, and if you have a membership at the Arboretum, you all know that you can get seed from us. So the first thing is your potting mix. We often call it potting soil, but what you want is actually what's called a soilless mix. It does not have any garden soil in it. What it has is, depending on the type, finely milled bark, peat, perlite, that's the little white things. Increasingly, you're seeing peat free potting mix, and that's great. It'll usually have something like coconut fiber in there. But this mix is designed to both drain and hold water, which is what you want. You want that right in between where it drains well, but it holds water for you. So you can do seed in any type of pot. You can do it in an open pot like this, where you're filling up your pot with potting soil, leveling it off a little bit, and then sowing your seed. I'm going to show you a little bit more of that in just a second. If you've got a lot, you can do it in a tray like this. Now, when you're doing this, you want your potting mix to be moist, but you want it to be not where it's glopping together. So what I do is I'll put some water in a bucket with my potting mix, and then I'll mix it around, and it'll seem very wet, and then I'll mix it and it'll seem bone dry, and I'll put in a little bit more water, and you do it in little bits and pieces because you want this to be moist. It is much more difficult to really get it moist once you've put your seed in or cuttings or whatever. Now, you can fill your tray first and then water it in really well. If you do that, you want to give it about 15 or 30 minutes to drain really well, because you don't want excess water. Don't do this on your kitchen table because you'll make a mess. Well, yeah, I suppose you can if it's your kitchen table. My kitchen table also belongs to my wife, and she does not like it when I do this kind of thing on the kitchen table. The dogs think it's fun. So you see I'm smoothing this out. It depends on how neat you want to be. You can get it really neat if you like. Even when I've pre-moistened the potting soil, I usually go in and will run a little water over the top and give it a minute or two to settle in. When you're watering seed or other new propagated material, you don't want a hose. You don't want something like that. You want something that's going to give you a real fine mist. So you can use, hose end sprayer that breaks it up. You use a watering can that has the rows on the end, as they call it. You can, I even know somebody who does it with a strainer, and they run their hose through the strainer and it diffuses it. Because if you're using a hose, it'll go in there and it'll beat down this soil and really compact it. And that's what you don't want. You want it nice and loose, but you want it to fill the containers, but be nice and loose in there. So I'm not pressing down, I'm just getting it a little bit cleaned up there. So, seed. We like to collect seed all year. This is seed from a dogwood. It was collected in October of this past year. You can do this seed sowing anytime when it's really cold, and it's going to stay cold, more or less. That's always an iffy thing here in Raleigh. It was 70 degrees a few weeks ago, but you wouldn't want to sow this in early October where we could get a week or two of 70, 80 degrees. So we put it in a little plastic bag. Plastic bag's the best thing for it. And we'll put it in a cool, dark place like a refrigerator. If you don't want to put it in a refrigerator, you can put it in a cabinet that stays kind of cool. That's fine. So a lot of times seeds like to be what they call stratified, which is you put them in something moist like a paper towel or moist sphagnum or moist sand, and you put it in the refrigerator for 30 or 90 days or so. But what we're doing is stratifying naturally. These dogwood seeds, I'm going to do them in this little pot. I'll put them in and I'll press them in just a little bit. Not a whole lot. You see that sitting in there? And then I'll take some of this potting soil that I made a mess with, and I'll sprinkle that on top. The general rule of thumb is you want to put maybe one time, half again as much soil on top of the seed as the width of the depth of the seed. But, plants want to live, and these seeds are growing out in other places. If you are more persnickety and you want your seeds to be separated, if you don't like your peas and your carrots to touch, and you want to do them in cells like this, same thing. Just poke them in there a little bit. One in each cell there for me. You don't have to, you can do two in each cell if you want. You put them in there. Now, I didn't bring labels, but I always immediately label this. I would put a Cornus Cusa label in this immediately. And since I don't have one with me, I am going to right now put this in, and I'll put in a better label later. But believe me, no matter how careful you are, no matter how much you're like, first cell tray is Cornus Cusa, this will get turned around, you'll forget, something will happen, and you won't know what you did. That always happens. I should do it in this as well. All right, those are some larger seeds. Here we've got a little seed from a little perennial, a Zephranthes, a little rain lily. Got to be careful outside with a breeze, because these are little light things that will flutter around. So with these, it's really just the same thing. I'll sprinkle them on the top. I'm not doing anything much with these other than sprinkling them on, and then I'll kind of rub them around, maybe put a little bit of soil on top. But you see, these are little seeds that are thin and light and will float around and get blown in the air, and they'll land somewhere and they'll germinate. So they don't need to get buried. They don't take time. Really, with something like that, if we were to sow those right when we collected them in, let's see, looks like September, they'd probably pop up and be growing almost immediately.
There's a good rule of thumb that the smaller a seed is, the more light it needs to germinate, and the bigger they are, the deeper they go down. So if you've got tiny little seeds, it's probably been adapted to spread around easily, just land on soil and sprout from there.
Yeah, it's to do with UVA versus UVB, which one is hitting the ground, but also the small seeds. If a plant produces a lot of small seeds, its goal is to get that stuff out and start growing very quickly. Whereas the larger seeds takes a lot more energy to make those, so those drop and they can sit there and wait for a little bit longer in general. Now, sometimes you get seed that's like dust. I mean, it is like dust. So this is a Hypericum inodorum, and it is literally like dust. It's the only downside to plastic bags is that dust wants to sit inside. So you can see how small this is. It is just tiny, tiny. You don't want to do this. While you don't do it at the kitchen sink or kitchen counter, you also don't want to necessarily do it outside when there's a breeze out, because these little seeds will blow around. But I just sprinkle them on top, and that's it. I'm done with them. Some people will come in and, do a little bit of something on top. I don't even bother with that. I just sow them right there on top. And then I'll come in again with that gentle water, and I'll water them in. So I'm watering in just to make sure there's good contact between the seed and the soil, but not soaking them through. Now, since we're putting these outside, I actually don't cover them. You may want to do something over them, like netting or something like that, because the squirrels will get in there, or other little critters will get in there. But I don't cover these up. Now, if I were doing them inside, I'll put them in a dome or something like that. But you do have to go and check them fairly regularly for water. And again, you just want to keep them barely moist, but you don't want them to dry out. But a lot of these seeds, like the Cornus cusa, it actually benefits from those rises and falls in temperature, from the rainfall that it gets, which has acidity in there. All those things help break down the seed coat, and they germinate. And just remember, these plants do this outside. It's not something they can take the freeze. You don't have to pull them in when we get, when it's going to drop down to 10 degrees. Just leave them out there. Sometimes, like with the Zephranthes, you'll get them starting to grow a little bit, and they'll pop up pretty quickly, and you'll get some green, and you'll be terrified when it gets cold. But they're okay. That's what they do. You'll get some little burnt tips, but they're all right.
I saw in the parking lot here at the Arboretum, there's a bunch of Helleborus fetidus. They germinate at this time of year, and the little seedlings popping up, they look happy and beautiful and nice. And even if it got down to, 20 degrees again, they'd be fine, just because they've adapted to sprout at this time of year.
Exactly. And if they don't want to, if they're not adapted to that, they won't sprout. But I actually, peonies, I love peonies, and I love species peonies especially. And so I will collect the seed from those, and I'll just wait and sow them outside in October or November. They need that cold. And over that first winter, they will put out a root, and you won't see anything. And I'll leave them for a whole nother season. I do them in a shady spot so they don't dry out so quick. And they'll go another season, and they'll put up a leaf the next year. And from that leaf, I can pluck it out and I can plant it in the garden. It's tough enough at that point to plant in the garden. It's a little leap of faith with that, and you got to make sure you remember where it is. And then in about another 2 years, it'll be flowering size.
So, Mark, is there a best time of year to start perennials like this, or is it too late to do it now?
Is there a best time of year to start them, or is it too late now? It depends, like a lot of things with plants. Some plants are really attuned to a cold period, and they need generally between 30 and 90 days of cold period, depending on the plant. And so those do want that. And you can take these seeds and keep them in, put them in some barely damp sphagnum or barely damp sand or barely damp paper towel in a plastic bag, and you can put them in the fridge for 30 or 60 or 90 days. We're trying to avoid that. But others don't need any kind of cold period. They respond more to day length than cold period. Some just respond to getting sown and going. So it really depends on the plant. I am a big believer for a lot of plants, if you sow it as soon as it's ripe, often you will get good germination right away. And then if you don't sow it right away, it will go into a dormant state, and that's when you start needing that cold period, followed by the warm period.
Interesting.
So I'm always, I love to sow my seeds right away, and if they don't germinate, the perennials and woody plants, I just keep them going in these trays. I may have sown this in June or July. I'll just keep it in a kind of a shady spot where it isn't getting beaten down by the sun, isn't windy and drying out, and I'll get it watered if it's dry. And I won't go in there and check and everything. I'll just let them go at least through that first winter and see if they germinate the next spring. So it's pretty simple. We tend to overcomplicate things. Now, there are some seeds from some plants that are very difficult to germinate. You just have to experiment, and you can find good instructions online. Just remember, online, people like to be experts, and so they often overcomplicate what you're doing, but there are some that need smoke in order to germinate because they're adapted to places where they get fires, and the whatever is in the smoke will do that. You can get liquid smoke that will help do that. You can.
And it works.
And it works. So there are other issues with that. We have other questions before we move on?
Sure. Matthew wanted to know, what do you do when your seedlings come up very thin?
What do I do when my seedlings come up very thin? I'm thankful that my seedlings came up. I let them grow until I'm comfortable popping them out. I usually like to take them out pretty small, where I put in these hypericum, a whole bunch of them will pop up in here if I'm lucky. I'll let them grow till they're kind of congested, but they'll be little thin things, and I will take them out. And if they're really small, I'll just go to another, 4-pack like this, and make a little hole, put them in there. Not pressed down, but make sure there's good contact, water in. So I'll do as many as I want of those, and then keep the soil just moist. And at that point, when I pot them up, or when they're really getting going, if I'm waiting for them to get a little bit bigger, but they've germinated and they're up, I'll put on a little slow release fertilizer, or I'll put on like quarter to half strength liquid fertilizer. You don't want to go a whole lot. You want the roots to have to go out and find nutrients. If you fertilize too early, the plants don't have any reason to really root out. They're getting everything. They're getting their moisture, because you want to make sure of that, because those little seedlings, they dry out, they're gone. Now, at that point, when they come up and you're coming into spring, you might want to water it in really well and do something like a cover on there, because they've germinated now, and this will help keep the moisture inside. Becomes like a little terrarium, but you don't want this sitting out in full sun, because it will bake these guys in a matter of an hour or two. So you want to give it some shade when you do that. I don't do that. I find that to be unnecessary. If I'm going to be away, sometimes I'll take a tray, fill it with water, put a half inch or so of water, and set this down inside there and let it soak up water inside. Sometimes if I'm feeling lazy, I do that with just in general. I find that doesn't work quite as well as going from the top, but as a stopgap measure, I'll do that. All right, we'll take these seeds and set them to the side right now. Okay, Here I've got, I'll put a little bit more soil in. So even though this is soilless mix, we call it soil because soil is dirt where you want it, and dirt is soil where you don't want it. Just like a weed. A weed is a plant you don't want. So, cuttings. The other way we propagate plants during the winter, especially woody plants, is by taking cuttings. And I have taken some cuttings here. Done two different ways. Whenever you take cuttings, no matter what, you want to keep them hydrated. It's not, sunny today. It's not hot. It's a little windy. So I took some cuttings and I just put them, as I cut them, I put them in a bag and I just put in a little, just barely damp paper towel. Sometimes when we're doing a lot of cuttings and we're doing them all in individual Ziploc bags, because we're going to be all day out, we'll take the cuttings, we'll put them in the bag, and we'll have a little spray bottle. We'll just squirt or two of water in there, seal them up, write the name on there. I need to slap my hand. I did not do labels today, and that is a part of this. The other thing you can do is just take a bucket with some water in it and do your cuttings right in the water so that they stay really nice and hydrated.
Yeah, and hydration is absolutely essential for the success of your cuttings. So if you have the ability, you might want to wait until it rains one day and then take your cuttings the next day. That way you can make sure the plant is nice and hydrated for you, give you the best chance of success with that.
And that's a great point. And something to consider as well is if it's been relatively, you've had relative rain. It didn't rain last night, but you've got some rain. That's great. That's fine. Unless it's been really windy, because wind dries out plants so bad. And so when you cut that plant, you're already stressing it. You're snapping that water column in there. And if it is dry from wind, it will have a very difficult time taking up more water. You're more likely to lose them. So thank you.
Yeah.
So same thing with the soil here. We've spread the soil out. We have not packed it down at all. I'm smoothing it out, but I'm not putting any pressure on there. You can do this in a tray like this. This has no 6-packs or 4-packs in here, or you can do them in the little cells. I do it both ways. We tend to take chunkier cuttings in winter, so I do it more often like this. So let's do a couple. All right. We tend to do, as Blake mentioned up top, we tend to do conifers and evergreen shrubs during winter. We don't really have to. There are deciduous things that we can do just fine. It's just there's fewer of them that do well, and so you have to know a little bit more. So I've got this holly. Now you'll notice perhaps on this holly, this piece, these little clusters up and down the stems. These are flower buds. Flower buds are one of the worst things to have on your plant when you are taking cuttings. The flowers take a lot of energy to form, to open. So generally, try to take cuttings without flower buds. And when you're looking at a plant, just look for something that looks different from the whole rest of it, because sometimes those flower buds are hard to see, and sometimes you have to take cuttings with the flower buds. If you do and you know they're flower buds, I generally like to remove them.
Yes.
Not everybody does, surprisingly to me.
No kidding. It hurts. It hurts your soul to remove flower buds like that, but it really is beneficial to the plant in this particular instance.
Yeah, and I'm doing it to a holly where you don't care about the flowers that much. Some things, you take some cuttings of Daphne and you got to twist off those flower buds.
Or camellias. Those big honking buds on there. Yeah, that's sad.
So I've got this one. It's got some flower buds down low, but no matter what, even if I took my cuttings and came straight in here and started doing this, I want to make another cut on them. And so I will cut just below a node, and a node is where a leaf is on there. So I will cut below a node, and strip off some leaves. I don't cut them off. Some people like to kind of score their,
Sure.
to wound them a little bit to give a spot for the where the cells will differentiate and become go back to kind of stage 0 where they can then become roots. I'll just pull the leaves off, and generally that makes enough of a wound to go in. Now, I don't just stick this in. You want to use a rooting hormone to get them to root. And there are different ones. There's Dip and Grow is a commercial one that often do. This is a liquid one. Read the instructions on there. Some of them, they want you to dilute it. Some not. They're all different. So it's a liquid. There are also powders. So here we have Hormodin. It's just a little white powder. I bring this up. I was giving my staff a hard time for this. This is, somebody nicely dated it, which is a great thing to do when you get something like this, to put a date on it. It says 21 November 92. This is too old to use. It is no good anymore. So date them and throw them away, because even if you go, well, this thing I can feel this is half or more full. If it's no good, it's no good. So toss it. And generally with something this large, unless you're a professional, you're gonna have a hard time going through it. So get as small a thing as you can. So there are several different ones. We use a lot of this Hormodin, but you can do different ones. The thing is, with winter cuttings, they really do better with IBA, indole butyric acid, indole 3 butyric acid.
Yes.
The other common rooting hormone is NAA.
Naphthalene acetic acid.
Naphthalene acetic acid. So this one has both. Hormodin 1 just has NAA. So we don't use that for our winter cuttings. We use the Hormodin 3. We also sometimes use this. This is, again, IBA, indole butyric acid. Oop, this is brand new. I'm not opening up. This is a gel. So it's not a liquid. It's like doing this with grape jelly. It really is. And the good thing about this, the gel, is it sticks to the plant better. And so you get that hormone on the plant for longer. It doesn't wash off as quickly. It doesn't, when you push the stem in, it doesn't push it away. Anything like that. So you've got your hormone. You do not want to dip your plants directly in there. You don't want to pour it into the top and dip your plants in there. What you want to do is have something clean and small. Bottle cap that's been washed works well. Get a little bit. We've used this stuff. Get a little bit just in that cap. Get something with some water in it. And take your cutting. Don't do like I did, leave these hanging around. Leave them in the water till you're ready to go. You've got everything set up. And then do a dip in the water, a dip in the rooting powder. And then some people are really adamant that you need to put a hole in there first before you put it in, and then push a little bit of soil. Don't want to pack it down, but you want good contact. I'm not so precious. I don't have that much time.
Right. You can understand the thought process, though, because when you just shove it straight into the dirt, it does kind of push the powder out of the way.
Push the powder out of the way.
But like the powder is still there with it. And honestly, if it's an apical stem, like it's producing auxin from the apical meristem. So it is still getting some rooting hormone even without.
And, you know, I've stuck in those apical meristems, but I don't have to do them that large. I can do them smaller, so I can do multiples from the same place if I wanted to. And this is how, you would do it if you were, if you really had a business. You can do 1 or 2 leaf cuttings. So there's a little 2-leaf cutting. I pulled off a leaf down here. 2-leaf cutting. Pulled off a leaf down there at the bottom, another 2-leaf cutting. And you don't want to you want to put these down far enough that they won't flop around, that they're held there, but you don't want to try and push them all the way down to the bottom. All the way down to the bottom is where the water sits, and they will rot because they'll be in almost standing water. Let's see, that little piece that I had, I got 3 cuttings on, right there. Boom. Easy.
Beautiful. Kat is asking, you don't cut the leaves in half when you're sticking cuttings?
No.
Okay. No
I
kidding.
don't.
For all plants?
I will for some plants,
okay.
But it is more about them being too big in here than anything else. If they're really large leaves, you can cut them, and that keeps them from drying out too quickly. And so I will sometimes, but it's more because it's messy and everything that I'll do that. Because if I have really big leaves, you can't get them close together.
No kidding.
But like certainly for something like this, no.
Sure.
I don't. All right. Took a chunky little akuba that I took. Long leaves, not narrow leaves. Now I don't need this part at all. I'm just cutting it off completely. So I'm left with this. This, if you wanted to, because they're going to be floppy and getting away, you could come in here and cut these in half.
Sure.
I don't feel like you need to, but it does keep it from moving around a little bit more.
Yeah, anecdotally, you'll still have success if you do that. But again, like, do you need to is really the question.
Right. So I didn't pull any leaves off, but I can see here that there is a leaf node. You see that little brown spot right there, raised ridge?
Yes.
That's where a leaf was. I do that. It sits up kind of tall and isn't really happy like that. So this is pretty much the same thing. It's got that same node there. I'd actually go ahead and cut this closer, pull off these bottom leaves. I'll go ahead to keep it the same. I'll cut these leaves in half.
And how far apart are you planting the cuttings from each other? Sticking them in the tray?
Enough so that water could get all around. We really, a lot of times when we're doing a lot of cuttings here, we'll put them almost on top of each other. Like we will do 30 or 40 cuttings just like that.
Sure.
We will jam them in. So this is, when I started doing these, I had these hollies about maybe inch and a half apart. These with the larger leaves, bigger plant, maybe 2 inches apart. If I were doing bigger leaf akubas, I may do them as much as 3 or 4 inches apart. Sometimes, these are all kind of larger leaf things. Sometimes you have these little tiny leaf things. This is a native blueberry, Vaccinium darrowii. Makes a little dwarf shrub, really beautiful thing. This kind, I'll kind of take a cutting like maybe this big, although you could do smaller, and I'll just strip those leaves off, and same thing. You don't want the lower leaves to be under the soil because they'll tend to rot there, and you don't want things to rot. But you can see I can do these pretty close together because they're all pretty small. And I can also economize my time and do 3 or 4 at a time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like stripping the leaves off your thyme when you're cooking. Voila, feels beautiful. Now, also mentioned up top was conifers. conifers are great for doing during winter, but not all conifers really go from cuttings. It's difficult, it's not impossible, but difficult to do things in the pine family. So pines and spruces and firs, your Christmas tree type trees, if you think about them that way. Others like cryptomeria and chamaecyparis and thuyas, so the false cypresses and Japanese cedars are all really pretty easy. With this little guy, this is a little dwarf cryptomeria. I've cut it. Some people will pull these bottom scales off. I find if I do this, it tears off too much of the bark.
Yeah.
And I don't have success doing that. So what I do is I may pull off a few at the very bottom just to wound it a little bit. And then I'll just dip this whole thing and stick it like that. And you'd be amazed at how well they root. So I've stuck my cuttings. These are a little more sensitive. Those seed, they can pop up whenever they want, whatever feels good to them. These guys are kind of out there in the open and they don't have roots. They can dry out very, very quickly. So what I like to do is cover them up with something. I brought all kinds of things in case of the questions. So I don't like to do a dome. You can do a dome, just make sure you're staying where it's not going to get direct light. I actually like to go under white because this reflects the sun, reflects the heat, but it allows enough to come through. You can see the light coming through there. But you don't want any of the plastic to touch your plants. So I will use something like, you can use coat hangers, you can use things like this. And you're basically making a little tunnel there. And then I'll just slide it carefully into the plastic bag. I'll water everything in really well. Let it drain really well, and then I'll put it in here. And again, it makes it like a little terrarium, and I'll fold it under itself so it's sealed up. I'll open it up and check on it or look at it. If I see a bunch of big drops in here, it's too wet. So I'll open up the end a little bit, fold it back, let it go for another 30 minutes or an hour, fold it back up. Look for those. So you'd like it to have some moisture that's coming up to the top. That means, but not big droplets that are there. And really, that's it. Don't come in and pull on your plants constantly. They take a little time to root. Just let them go. When you see that they're starting to push out new growth, then maybe you can check them and you just give them a little, see if there's any resistance coming up. But if they've got really fine roots, you can break them doing that. So don't want to do that. Sometimes you'll feel like there's resistance with your conifers, and you'll pull them up and you'll have this little ball of kind of just weird stuff there. That's where the cells are differentiating, going from stem and leaf tissue to kind of this amorphous tissue. And that's where your roots will come from. There's some conifers that will sit like that forever. They'll just keep sitting and sitting and sitting. They'll be fine, but they'll have just this ball on there. If that happens and it's on there for a long time, you can go in there and scrape it a little bit, re-dip it in your hormone and stick it again.
Something else you can use to maintain humidity, you can go to Lowe's and get a big old plastic container, clear plastic containers with lids on. They have containers and they have lids on them. If it's big enough, you can stick cuttings and put them in there. I had very good success last year propagating a ficus, a house plant. What I did was I took a big plastic tub. I put like an inch of water on the bottom. I put like a nursery tray in that so that I could have my plants above that water. And then I just put the pot in there on top of that, covered it up. I replace the water every week because the water does get a little gross, but like that water in there, it evaporates and then it does condense. Like you've got a little like rain situation going on.
So I got to ask this: did you put it top down and fill the top with water?
Nope.
And put the tray, a nursery tray. You did a tray on top of a tray, right?
I did a tray on top of a tray.
This tray is not sitting in water at all.
Correct. There's a tray at the bottom that is only there to prop the tray above the water, so it's not in the water at all. So it's just hovering above the water, and then I've got it on the north side of my building, and it just, when the sun comes, it heats up, and then at night it condenses, and it keeps it humid in there.
Right.
And it's fundamentally an automated mist system that doesn't use electricity.
Right. That's a great idea. Yeah. I have seen people, rather than slide them into a box, I've seen people take one of those Tupperware things and like put it on top of that. But you're not doing you're holding in some moisture, but you're not providing the moisture in there to move. I like that.
Sure. And the tub clearly wasn't designed for that because it's smaller at the bottom than it is at the top. So it's a little bit awkward, but you can make it work.
Yeah.
Are you ready for questions?
I'm ready for questions.
Okay. Jared wants to know, is there any harm in scarifying seeds if there is no good info on if they need it or not?
So scarifying is physically damaging the seed coat on a seed. And the question is there any harm in doing that? So I actually just this morning with some seeds, some rhododendron seed, I pulled out my trusty little mini Leatherman, and I took my knife and I scraped that seed. So generally you're talking about larger seeds that have a hard seed coat. Don't go all the way through the seed coat. You thin it out, and then that's where moisture will come through. It is not harmful for many things. Other things it is. You definitely only want to do it with something that has a hard seed coat. These dogwood seeds that have migrated down, dogwoods are ones that will benefit from scarification. So you can use a knife, you can take something like pliers and twist it in there a little bit, twist it around, and get a little bit of, just rough it up a little bit, and they will respond much better than that. But what happens with that generally with dogwoods, you do that and they pop up really quickly. So with these sitting out all winter, if you do these in the fall and they sit out all winter, that's kind of they're naturally breaking down that seed coat.
So I guess the rule of thumb is if it's got a real thick coat, then you can assume that it could benefit from scarification. Yeah. Otherwise, if the seed coat's not that thick, then probably don't bother.
Don't bother, yeah.
Okay.
Some rules of thumb: plants in the bean family. You know how dried beans are, how hard they are. Those will often benefit from a little scarification if they've gotten really hard. Because just think, the ones you eat will soften up when you soak them. The ones you don't eat can get really, really hard. And a lot of them are adapted for very, very dry conditions, and they are sealed up real tight. And so a lot of those can use a little scarification.
For sure. Good tip. Okie dokie. Barbara says that she has some Swiss chard that really stretched, even though she has lights close to them. She wants to know, can they be planted with this stretched stem, or does she just need to discard and start over?
I am not a vegetable expert. I'm going to start with that. If they haven't stretched and are going to seed, you could plant them. I don't think they would go bitter, but again, I am not a vegetable seed or annuals in general person.
Okay. Me neither, honestly. That's fine. So Bridget wants to know, when you're transplanting seedlings, do you wait for them to get their true leaves before you move them? Yes,
and that's a good point. All seeds will have what they call the seed leaves first, and then true leaves. So don't be afraid if you've planted, say, a cut leaf Japanese maple, and it comes up and there are these two leaves that have no indentations or anything. Don't pluck it out and throw it away and say, I've got the wrong thing. Those are what we call cotyledons, the seed leaves. And so you want to wait, and yes, I wait until at least one set of true leaves is out. And depending on the plant, I'll wait for multiple, like that little fine dust hypericum that I did. That comes up and is very small, very fine, and I'll wait for it to get, at least an inch or so tall before I transplant it.
And in the spirit of horticulture, it depends, and it's different for every plant. So hellebores at Pine Knot Farms, literally every hellebore that is propagated at Pine Knot Farms, they are transplanted as seedlings with only the cotyledons on there. You do not wait for the true leaves to come out to transplant a hellebore seed.
Right, they actually transplant better with just the cotyledons. They can be tricky after that. So
you gotta love horticulture. You definitively say, oh yeah, wait until, no, there's exceptions.
You're right,
to everything.
Glad you're here. Keep me honest.
Okie dokie. Jared wants to know, have you ever heard of using anti-desiccation spray on evergreen hardwood cuttings to mitigate moisture loss when misting isn't an option?
I have. There's some things called like wilt-proof and other anti-desiccant, anti-drying sprays. You spray it on there and it coats the leaf. I'm not a big fan of them for propagation. I think you run into more problems than you solve that way.
Sure. Okay. Some questions about specific conifers that can be rooted. Lisa wants to know eastern red cedar.
Eastern red cedar, yes. It can be tricky. Our experience with eastern red cedar is you get 100% or you get 0%. And that's with the same plant on one year after another. Yes. Some of the conifers can be tricky. The ones that are real sappy with real thick, sticky sap, that can clog up the tubes, if you will, the vascular system, and so they won't take up water. So the best thing to do with those is you've taken your cuttings, go inside, get some warm water, not hot water. Put them in that, let them sit in that for a while to break up that. Do your cuttings again, dip them and stick them pretty quickly, so do that second cut.
And one thing about eastern red cedar, if you're planting eastern red cedar because you're concerned about natives and biodiversity and that kind of thing, if you're taking cuttings off of one individual, there will be no biodiversity. They'll all be genetically identical. So if you're concerned about the environment and want to plant red cedars because of that, I would say propagate those by seeds. That way you get a diversity in the genome there.
Or do cuttings of a bunch of different cultivars, and then you've got genetic diversity as well.
And superior plants.
That's right.
So there you go. What about podocarps? Do they root well?
Root great.
Beautiful. Okay, Carol wants to know, what is the largest size of cuttings of conifers that you would try to root?
Oh, with conifers, I like to keep it pretty small. I'm looking around at what I have near me. So on mentioned in podocarp, this is an easy one to root. I would have no problems rooting something this size.
Yeah.
Our biggest issue is going to be that it wants to flop over. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't do that. I would do it more, and I'm tearing this, you should cut. I'm just doing this because we're in Q&A. I would do them more that size.
Yeah, and generally speaking, for conifers and cuttings, you want more juvenile growth. The more mature the growth is, the harder time it's going to have de-differentiating and re-differentiating. So honestly, bigger cuttings aren't necessarily better. It's not going to save you a lot of time. It's just going to make it less likely that it will root.
And there's an old technique that you don't see used very often because it's hard to get a lot of plants. It's called etiolating the plant. And that's where you put like tape around a stem and it bleaches kind of the inside, and then you do the cutting right there and stick that. And there's something about it, the tissue being shaded. And I say this not to get you to do that because we don't really do that much anymore. But often, and I don't know if you can see behind me here with plants, if you go in and you get some, like there's a little piece here that's right in the interior. Now this is a variegated plant. This has almost no variegation on there, but that's because it was growing in shade. So a lot of times you'll get more juvenile type growth on the interior and it's kind of shaded. And so you want to look for that. And generally you want 1 year, the previous season's growth. Like we're doing these in fall or winter. You want the growth that was from that season leading into the fall.
Yes, the newest of the growth.
Usually. There are a few that root better from the second year's growth.
No kidding. Okie dokie. What about Elysium? Hardwood cuttings on Elysium?
Hardwood cuttings on Elysium work.
Beautiful. Okay, Sue and Claudia want to know, what kind of plastic bag was that?
This was just this is the bag that our facilities person uses in our recyclable containers. Just look for cheap white. The cheaper the white bag is, the more see-through it'll be.
That's a hot tip.
It's a hot tip. You could do it in one of the like a kitchen bag that is fully white. It does, you get a little bit different light through there
for sure,
UV wise, but yeah, there's a lot of growers that actually
definitely intentionally
use white plastic.
There's covered poly houses are often white, and you get good light in there and not full blazing sun. So lots of good reasons. Okay, Ryan says that he's tried dozens of cuttings of various plants in an upside down plastic tote in his garage where they'll get some light from a window, but not directly, with no success. Everything either rots or withers and drops its leaves before any sign of rooting. Do you have any suggestions for hitting the sweet spot with moisture that he can't seem to figure out?
Well, like I said, water and drain well. Inside a garage with one window or a couple of windows, you are not getting much light in there. Your plants don't want direct light, but they need some hours of light, of diffuse light. So that your problem may be more light than moisture. I would try going, if that's something you really have a problem with, is Blake's trick of water in the bottom, lifting your tray up. Don't put your tray in the water. It could be just a couple of bricks that you sit in there and set your tray on top of those bricks.
That'd be perfect.
Sealed up, and you've watered your plants in well, and you get that getting the air, the moisture rising and then kind of falling. It's like having a mist greenhouse or
for sure. And when I'm replacing the water every week, I'm also watering the substrate from the top a little bit just to get water to run through it, to get air down in there, because I imagine there's buildup of CO2 down in there too.
Right. If even the top of the soil gets really dry, the water will kind of run off it. It won't go through. It gets very hydrophobic, where it doesn't want to take up water. So even you want to water that in, and every time you change that water, you want to get water in there to make sure that all that material does get has some liquid.
But great hitting tips. The sweet spot is not easy, and it's something that it takes years to calibrate you to get to that point. So just stick with it, keep trying things. If things are rotting, it's too moist. If things are drying out, it's too dry, and try new things. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, and I've heard people say, well, I don't have a spot that's not in full sun. Well, you got foundation plantings. If they're not too big and too overgrown, it might be as simple as setting your tote down behind a shrub that provides enough shade for it. It doesn't have to be perfect. These plants, this is what they do.
For sure. Yeah. And goodness me, humans have been able to propagate plants asexually through cuttings before the invention of automated mist systems, before the inventions of plastics. Like, there are ways to make it happen, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Barbara wants to know, is rubbing seeds between two pieces of fairly rough sandpaper good enough to scarify seeds?
If it's a thick, hard seed coat, you really got to get some layers off of there. But sandpaper works.
For sure. And it doesn't even have to be two pieces. You can just have one piece on the table, take your seed and rub it on there. And once you penetrate through, you'll be groovy. Okay. From propagation to planting in the garden, do we need to wait a season and keep potting up?
I like planting small. It depends. But these Akubas, if you leave them in here, let me move this stuff, they'll root, and they will actually, like if they're in these little 4-packs over here, it'll root, and if you don't do anything with it, it'll start pushing its way out because the roots get so big and they can't be contained in there. This gets roots on there, I'd put it right in the ground. I've got no problem with that. Now, I like planting things small, and I'm a big believer that they're probably going to survive better in the ground than in a pot for me. Now, when this roots, it's going to be pretty small, and it's going to take it a while to get big. And so just to keep it from being overtaken by the mulch and everything, I may want to pot that up for a season and let it go through a season before planting.
Okay, we will do one final question. Paul says, I like to take fall cuttings from plants obtained at the fall plant sale and giveaway. My question is whether I should keep the rooted and growing plants inside for the remainder of the winter, or might it be better to place them into a cool greenhouse until spring when they can be planted out? Will a shortened period of cold help? And he has 2 examples there, Cestrum parkii and Caryopteris incana.
Okay, so let's unpack that. First, we give away about 4,000 plants on the first Saturday of October to our members.
We sure do.
So thank you for being a member.
Yes.
He takes cuttings, likes to take cutting of those, and then keeps the other plants indoors because pruning stimulates growth. So if you take cuttings, you are in effect pruning, and that can stimulate growth. I wouldn't be overly concerned. It's October. They could if they throw out a little bit of growth after you've taken cuttings, then the worst that's going to happen is it'll get frozen off and you'll have some little dead bits on there, but it won't kill the plant. So I wouldn't see a problem with that personally, planting them out.
And plants adapt to the climate as the climate's happening. So like if they've been outside all winter, then they're used to being outside all winter and they're hunky-dory. If you've had them inside and protected, then they're used to being inside and protected, and you maybe don't want to put them out just yet. You really
if you bring them in, I would wait until spring is really here before putting them out, because if we get say 18-degree night in mid-March, which we certainly could, you're probably going to kill the plant much easier than if you had taken some cuttings and then planted it out in October. Yeah,
he says he's asking about the newly rooted cuttings that have begun growing. So then wait until, if you took those cuttings last fall and they rooted over winter and they're already growing now, then you really ought to wait until it's properly spring before you put them out.
Yeah. Even in our nursery, we have cold houses where we allow the temperatures to drop down around freezing, just below freezing. And then we have warm houses that we let go down to about 50 degrees. And a lot of that, the ones that are 50 degrees, a lot of that most of that is from things that we have done from cuttings late in the season. So we put them in there so that they don't freeze. They don't necessarily keep growing at 50 degrees. They don't freeze.
Sure. Okay, and one final thing. So we got a bunch of people asking random questions like, can we propagate this plant from hardwood cuttings? What is a good resource that you would recommend for people to find that information for themselves?
Wow, there's so many plants out there that that can be difficult. We have a propagation guide that we did years ago. I believe it's still on our website. That talks a little bit about that. But I would go and look at multiple references on the internet, perhaps. Don't trust just one. But I don't know right off the top of my head because I just try it, I was out teaching a winter propagation class here. We had our propagation class, which is a great place to learn. And I took some cuttings off of a sycamore. No leaves, just some cuttings. And it was just because I wanted to try it. Yeah. They rooted no problem at all. If you had asked me when to root sycamore, I would have said it's hard to root probably, and your best bet would be on pretty soft wood.
No kidding.
Rooted no problem from winter hardwood cuttings.
That's a fantastic point, Mark, because there are so many different kinds of plants and they're all so different, and we as humans don't know everything there is to know about them. Just because we know you can do a plant like this in this certain way doesn't mean it can't be done other ways. Like trying things out is certainly, you may be surprised that it works in a way you never would have imagined. I would like to say, I personally, when I research plants on whether or not they can be done by hardwood, softwood, I use Michael Durr's Manual of Woody Landscape Plants. It's a very thorough resource. It lists basically all of the plants and gives you some indication about what a lot of people have had most success with for those specifics. So that's what I use, just because I have the book and I love the opportunity to break the thing out and actually flip through it. So cool. Okay. Well, that is all of the questions that we had and all the time that we have for today. So thank you, Mark, so much for pulling all this together and showing us how to propagate plants in the winter.
Exactly. It's great. Love doing it.
Beautiful.
Love propagating.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you for joining us live and sticking with us for questions. We really do appreciate your viewership. Those of you that joined us on YouTube, thank you for staying till the end. We do appreciate that. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel. And if you would be so kind, take the time to leave a comment down below whatever emoji you most associate with winter propagation. Make a poem out of the emojis. Honestly, I'm thinking there's some snowflakes, there's some conifers. Get as creative as you need to be, just for engagement's sake. It really does help our channel. We will be back with the midweek program next Wednesday at 3. We will be talking about agaves and their allies with Tim. So that should be a really wonderful program. We will see you all next time. Y'all take care.